What's up, 49ers fans? Welcome to my channel. My name is Rob Shue, ready to talk 49ers. Hopefully a couple of you were already over watching Grant and I discuss the 49ers, and you can come in here, throw your comments in the chat section, and get this party started. I got to stay positive this week because, let's be honest, 49ers fans, we are in a situation where it could get dire real quick. And you may already be at a point where you're feeling like things have gotten dire, where at 2-2, you've already pushed the panic button and you're already saying, oh no, man, this Trey Lance experience is going to go wrong. And then they're going to try to go back to Jimmy, and that's not going to happen. It could get ugly real quick. I went into this season believing that Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, their jobs were safe. They just got extensions. Neither one of them is going anywhere. They have the favor of the owner to the point where they can go in and spend 3 first-round picks on a rookie quarterback who probably won't be ready this year, and they had Jed's buy-in on that, and the fan base was amped. Myself included, we all came into this season just fired up that this was going to be another year where we had a legit chance to be competing for a Super Bowl at the end of the season and developing for next year. I bought it, hook, line, and sinker, that we were going to be able to keep one foot in each boat as these things went forward. And as of right now, things have played out in such a way that it leaves you with significant doubt about whether the 49ers have, to this point, had the right course of action in trying to prepare the rookie for the eventual start and taking over for Jimmy, while at the same time trying to stay committed to a quarterback that you knew was going to struggle. Coming in and saying what's up to those in the comments. What's up, Cam? How you doing, man? What's up, Luke? What's going on? All right, Johnny, we got in here. I only knew about your channel because you just announced this live feed. Good. Well, I'm glad that people are coming in. If you're on here now, go ahead and subscribe to the channel because we're building this thing out. And this is the first of many opportunities where I'm going to come on here solo and be talking straight to you people about what's going on with the 49ers. And I'm going to try to keep it positive, man, because I see a lot of negativity out there on Twitter. I see it. 49ers fans interacting negatively with one another, 49ers fans taking some strange joy in any one particular player struggling week in, week out, because it may prove their point of view, man. And I just challenge any of those people feeling that way to move past that, because when you put out any negativity in your life, man, it's just going to come back at you. I choose to stay positive because it lifts me up. It makes me excited to turn on the damn TV on Sunday and watch the 49ers go at it, because this could be a phenomenal game if the 49ers have a specific game plan for Trey. All right. People were asking what the name of the channel is. I appreciate that, Luke. I'll have to put it out on the next one. It's a real easy one if you found it here. It's just Rob Shue, S-C-H-U-H. It seems like a really complicated spelling, but it's really not. It's just Shue in German, spelled the way that they spell S-H-O-E. What's up, Delandus? What's going on, man? Yeah, I believe that we should have hope, that there's reason for optimism on Sunday. We got Bryant here. Great show. I agree. Kyle and John aren't going anywhere. I sure hope not. It sets up in such a way that it could get ugly for them if they mishandle the way in which this transition to Trey happens. If what we see from Trey is atrocious on the field, I absolutely believe that there are some ways this thing could go sideways. There are ways in which this season could play out that John Lynch loses his job. And let's just be honest, that if things continue as they have to this point in the season, you could say it might be fair. If you can't get contributions from your first 4 overall draft picks in a season where you thought you were contending for a Super Bowl, if the quarterback that you traded up and gave away 3 firsts in order to draft, traded 2 firsts and used your own first rounder in order to draft, isn't ready to play, again, you can fault the GM of the team. If you have a strategy that relies upon players that have been injured to this point in their career, again, that type of accountability should be placed on John Lynch. And so that could end up costing him his job. And I think that if it did, I believe it would be warranted to some degree. As much as that pains me to say it, it pains me to say it. Yes, indeed. Gabriel here says, if Kyle don't start winning soon, the fans will want his head. I agree. And I got to admit that I'm fairly shocked at the way in which fans have turned on him and the way in which I myself have changed my own outlook upon this coaching staff and this front office. I consider myself to be a very level-headed individual, and yet it does seem as if the 49ers have really gotten off to a rocky start this year and set themselves up for failure in how they approach this quarterback conundrum. All right, here's another quote that we've got here from Delondis Green. Didn't the story in the draft go that Kyle was drawing up plays for Trey at Justin's pro day? Yes, indeed, that is the story. Well, it's time to show us what he got. Amen to that. We need to see a Kyle-specific designed play set for Trey Lance. I mean, it's got to be clear as day when we go back and watch the offense perform that this offense was set up for Trey to be successful. Because I'm so frustrated with this concept of putting forth an offense that both quarterbacks could be successful within. That seems to set both up to fail. Why not have much more of the way of packages specific to that individual? And Grant points out a very fair aspect of this, which is you just don't have the time to practice two specifically different offenses in the preseason. The collective bargaining agreement has limited the amount of practice reps that any team is going to get. There just aren't enough hours in the day in the preseason to install both. But then the decision to install one that was all about Jimmy when you knew that Trey was going to be called upon at some point is very frustrating to me. And it feels like something that's very fair to criticize at that point. All right, we got this isn't cursing. We're okay with the term ass in this show, right? We're all above 13 years old, according to YouTube's terms of service. This swamp ass Cardinal fans on social media talking out of pocket. Now we got these Cardinals linebackers talking about number 5, about Trey Lance. I hope we show up on Sunday and make them earn that L. I absolutely believe that we can and will run all over this Arizona Cardinals team. That is the way in which you control Arizona's offense, in which you put yourself in a position to be successful as a team. Complementary football, back to basics, controlling the pace of the game, making sure that you continue long, sustained drives, going up against the Arizona Cardinals in the way in which they're most vulnerable, which is against the run. And you have the 3 key players coming into this game that are set up to be successful in that area. All right, I agree with this one by Luke. Hit or smash that like button, subscribe. I appreciate all of you for jumping on here after the show with Grant. This is awesome. We're going to keep this up as a regular occurrence. Think of this as like the Late Show. After the Tonight Show with the guests, if the guests from the Tonight Show just stuck around and did their own thing, that's what we're going for here. All right, got a shout out from Brazil. Loving it. Tiago, listening all the way from Brazil. You and Grant are great. Appreciate that, my friend, as always. All right, got to make sure that I'm getting current on these comments because people are in here. If I miss any of them, I got to apologize, but you guys are engaging, and so I just got to pick them where I can. I love the enthusiasm. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Honestly, a pleasure to have you all. Warren here says, I'm with you, Rob. I can't understand the division in the 49ers community over who's the quarterback. Personally, I don't care as long as they're a 49er. I'm with you wholeheartedly on this one, Warren. I think that I understand it. We're in a spot as a society where we want to divide everything into these binary choices. We want to make everything into one team versus the other. And social media has propagated that attitude, and it's unfortunate. But I encourage 49ers fans to check themselves and realize that the only person you're really bringing you down at that point is yourself. If you can latch on to that positivity, if you can tune in to someone like myself who's exuding positivity on a day where a 49er fan probably shouldn't be, maybe you can feed off of that. Maybe you can carry some of that positivity into your own life, and that will help lift you up. I'm just telling you, it feels better to be optimistic. It feels better to try and bring the positive energy into your life than the negative. That's always my stance, and I'm going to continue to be there. I will say I am realistic about the 49ers' chances on Sunday. It will be an extremely challenging game, and I think the likelihood of winning it is slim. I think the 49ers have to do basically everything right. They need the Trey Lance that you saw at North Dakota State. Well, you probably didn't see him. Probably nobody saw him at North Dakota State. Basically, the stadium was, housing a bunch of students there. It's going to be a rude awakening for him now, coming into the NFL, coming into that stadium with the loud noise of Arizona. They're obviously going to be jacked up for that game. But I think we have to brace ourselves for the fact that it will be a tough fought victory, even if we're able to pull this out. And there's a chance that we can't. Looking on to Bryant here, Trey can win this game. I just don't think this is exactly what Kyle wants. I agree with your sentiment to that point. Absolutely. I think he's done with Jimmy, but I don't think he's sold on Lance. I think we get Rodgers next year. Interesting. I'm with you 1,000% on the first two statements. I think, oddly enough, that Kyle is done with Jimmy. That seems like a fact. You can look at how he talks about Jimmy. The most telling one is when you watch his natural reactions on the sideline. When you see that play from Jimmy that has us all scratching our heads, let's be honest, there are those bonehead throws from Jimmy that we've all become accustomed to, even those of us that still support him as the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. You know that those plays are coming. That is who Jimmy is at this point, and it doesn't appear as if he's changing with that. Kyle is certainly done with that inconsistent performance, let alone the injury issues. However, it does seem as if whether Kyle knew it from the outset when they drafted him because he only had 300 plus, throws in college, or whether it was something he realized once he got Trey into the building, it does seem as if Kyle is saying that Trey is not where he needs to be in order to take over this starting role for the San Francisco 49ers. I don't agree on the we'll get Rodgers next year. I see that as potentially wishful thinking. If you invest everything that you did into Trey Lance, number one, it hamstrings you with very few assets to give up in chasing Aaron Rodgers. And let's not forget that for Aaron Rodgers, even though he looked to hold out, I was very surprised by the way in which he folded and eventually caved to those demands because he didn't get any airtight release next year. It still will be a head-to-head, I want to go here, well, we get the best compensation from these folks. I don't know that Aaron Rodgers is going to get to choose where he goes next offseason, and I just doubt that Matt LaFleur wants to send him to the San Francisco 49ers, especially after watching that handshake that happened at the conclusion of the game against Green Bay. And famous, keeping it light here, Tom Sula might still be available. Yes, he probably is, and for good reason. Man, it's too bad that we ruined him as our defensive line coach. I mean, obviously, Chris Kosarick wouldn't trade him for the world, but Tom Sula was fantastic as a position coach before Jed decided he was ready for a head coaching gig that he obviously wasn't ready for. Paul M. says, I want Kyle to be the genius that everyone says he is. I'd like a few winning seasons in a row too. So, you know what, Paul? So would I. And I'm someone who believes that Kyle Shanahan is an offensive genius. I'll go out on a limb and say that. Yes, I believe him to be one of the premier play callers in the NFL. But he does seem to be lacking in a couple of key areas that a head coach needs to be better at. I'm not thrilled with this entire concept that Kyle has of a doghouse. I know he's denied that he has a doghouse, but the simple idea that he's unable to communicate with these players in a way that avoids a doghouse where you need to hurt the team by benching a player that should be able to benefit the team in whatever they're going up against to send a message. Messages should be sent by talking to one another. That's how messages should be sent from a head coach to a player. Players are professionals in this league. They're not kids. They may be young enough to be considered kids, but these are professionals making hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to do what they do. They absolutely deserve the respect of the head coach in approaching them as men and not trying to send some sort of a convoluted message. That's just going to be my 10 cents on the take. All right, looking at the next one here. Kyle and John, I like him too. I think Kyle needs to get better coaches around him. John needs to trust the scouts more. That's an interesting take around Kyle and the coaches around him. I think there's something to that. I'm a little concerned with Mike McDaniel in the way he describes Kyle as basically being this infallible individual, as if he's got some godlike ability to call these plays that are always right for the situation. I don't like the idea of Kyle having yes men around him in the room. I do think that someone with the intelligence and the ego that Kyle possesses, and the ego is warranted to some degree, I do believe people with that level of intelligence and that level of egotism need to be surrounded by powerful people that can stand their ground, because the temptation is, and believe me, if any of us were in the room with Kyle talking football, he would talk circles around us. I mean, it wouldn't even be funny, right? It'd be hilarious is what it would be, but it would be staggering the level of difference that he has. But for other coaches, for other GMs, for other scouts that have the type of knowledge that can stand toe to toe with Kyle, there has to be the willingness to say no. There has to be the willingness to contradict, because even people who are geniuses, even wildly successful offensive minds, are still wrong some of the time and have to be told that's the case. I just believe that's the fact. Who gets fired first, Kyle or the GM? Jonas, to me, it's clear cut. I think there's next to nothing Kyle could do this season to get himself fired. This year. I think there are things he can do this season that set him up to get fired next year. But let's just go through and say that the 49ers struggle for the rest of the year. They drop the game to the Cardinals, which I don't believe that they will. They go into the bye, unsure of how they're going to solve this quarterback scenario. Now questioning whether Trey can make the next leap. Still having a banged up Jimmy who isn't 100%, but could play come after the bye. And let's say it just goes badly. The injuries continue to pile up. 49ers continue to lose. I mean, as I'm saying this, it pains me to think that this is not an unlikely scenario. This is not out of the realm of possibility. In fact, you might have to say to yourself, this is basically a coin flip at this point. The NFC West is, in my mind, the toughest division in football. You look at the Rams and the Cardinals. We may catch a break with the Seahawks having an off year, but if Russell Wilson doesn't require surgery, I've not caught up on Twitter, so if he doesn't require surgery, you expect them to be competitive here. So this could get ugly, and at that point, someone has to answer for the lack of contributions that we had from the early draft picks this year, from the rookies, if they don't come forward and produce at some point. Someone has to answer for the reliance upon injured folks. Now, people will say, well, the Jason Verrett injury, that's absolutely, you should have known it was coming. And I agree with that. I agree that you should know a player like that is likely to get injured at some point. But I don't think you're banking on that being week one. I don't think that's the expectation going into the year. You may think to yourself, he'll probably miss 3 or 4 games this season, but you hope to at least get through the halfway point before something season ending pops up. With a guy like that, that was just heartbreaking. I don't blame him in the least. You can fault the 49ers for that strategy of relying upon someone that you pretty much knew was going to get hurt at some point, even if it happened significantly sooner than we all hoped or thought that it would. Angelo throwing in tough game ahead, but this is a must win for us to have any kind of successful season. We need this to spark back up. Yes, Angelo, I love the positivity. I'm here for it. I was going to say, seems like a lot of fans are already trying to get rid of Kyle. That's wild to me, man. Honestly, that is wild to me. Look back at who we had prior to Kyle. Now, I get the standpoint of, well, this is a much more appealing team. But I don't look at many big names out there that I would be super excited to bring into the building. I don't see many big names out there that are unquestioned quality head coaches. I do see a scenario where if this doesn't work out for Kyle, he has a moment to reflect upon himself and his own shortcomings as a head coach. Whomever hires him next realizes the folly of not putting into place a very, very strong GM that can stand up to Kyle and simply say, no, you can't have this, or we're going this direction, or at least provide a sounding board for these ideas. Not to say that John Lynch is inept in any way or incapable of doing these things, but the way in which they were brought in together leads me to believe that it's tougher to then have John stand up and really stand his ground. I was even shocked when he came forward and said, the draft is mine. That type of assertion even surprised me. So to me, it's who are you going to bring in to replace him? And it gets ugly pretty quick. Next question from Bryant here. Rob, should Kyle be forced into hiring an offensive coordinator other than Mike McDaniel? I'm going to add that in there. This is a tough one, man. This is tough. I like Mike McDaniel. Color me weird. I think he's cool in the press conferences. I like his dry sense of humor. I like that he's awkward. You can tell in the way in which he communicates that he is wildly intelligent, but potentially not a great communicator. He talks in circles quite a bit, and I don't think that's him trying to, as Grant put it, it's almost a filibuster, the way in which he goes on. I just think that things are moving rapidly for him upstairs, and that doesn't come out in the press conferences very well. That he's going around and around in his own mind about how to get on the right track, and therefore he gets caught up in his own answers. I like this solution here that Primetime's thrown out there, Rob, for Niner head coach. I mean, that to me is absolutely the correct path going forward, that someone with zero football experience who hasn't played since Pop Warner football would be invited to head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. It seems well within Jed York's wheelhouse to pull a move like that. That seems like something you would want to do. All right, 6:30 start for the game tonight. Go Giants, beat LA. How much fun is that to say beat LA? Beat LA. Beat LA, beat LA. I mean, it almost doesn't matter if you like baseball or you like the Giants. If you're a 49ers fan, if you're a Bay Area sports fan, you enjoy beating Los Angeles. And as someone who lives currently in Portland, Oregon, I can tell you the feeling is mutual up here. People love to beat LA. When it comes to Blazers games, if they're playing either LA team, the chants begin. It's all about picking on that city. So hopefully Giants bring one home. I had the absolute privilege of being at their game one for the World Series in 2010. It was fantastic. Here we go. Next comment. They should have kept Richard Sherman because of his veteran experience in corner roles. I agree with that. They should have brought Richard Sherman back in before he was flirted with by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When given a choice between the San Francisco 49ers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I am not surprised by Richard's choice to go to Tampa Bay. I think it's fair to assume, given how the season has played out to this point, that Tampa Bay has a better chance of making it to the Super Bowl and winning a ring. So I think Richard made the correct assumption there. The correct move. Rob, you're a breath of fresh air, man. Appreciate that. Keep up the great work. Whether the Niners are winning or losing, I appreciate you keeping it cool. Well, I appreciate you, my friend. Almazan, that's how I'm going with it. Correct me if I am wrong, because I got one of those last names that is difficult to pronounce if you just look at the spelling. All right, here we go. Next up. Do you think Kyle has been holding a bag of tricks just for this moment? Trey Lance and a division game. This is a tough question. Part of me hopes that that each side is true. Part of me hopes that Kyle wouldn't hold back in the last 2 games, because each of those games felt like they were very winnable games and felt like they were incredibly important games, in particular the game against Seattle going into the first division game. But that said, a first game for Trey Lance, the first full week of practice for the rookie, if you don't have a bag of tricks for him, what were you doing all summer? What in the world were you doing if you do not have a plan for this very instance? Everyone should be jazzed about this from that perspective. There should be a fair number of looks that come against Arizona that they are not prepared to face. Now, they have a talented defense. They may be able to overcome that, but you have to be able to dip into the bag of tricks and give Trey the opportunity to be successful. Give it to him. Set him up for success. Trey is the future. He is the future of this franchise. We need his development to go well. We need his confidence to be high. And in order to be high, you have to dial up some plays that he can really hit home runs with. And that doesn't matter to me whether it's setting him up for some off-script plays for him to show the physical gifts that he has as an athlete, or whether you set up a game plan that sets him up for a very controlled environment within the offense and allows him to execute simple plays, simple reads, keep it simple, keep him confident, keep him focused on the next down, keep the down and distance short. But the other question you have to ask yourself when you get into this conversation of a bag of tricks is, how well have those tricks worked to this point in the season? It's fair to say that they've been inconsistent at best. Inconsistent at best, and bad, if you're being honest about it. If you look at the number of these plays that they fall into that category of cute. Like, hey, if it worked, that'd be a highlight on SportsCenter. That'd be the type of play that goes on Twitter, that just goes viral, that people love, that causes people to say, that's why Kyle's so smart. But when you miss those, and when your team is consistently missing those within the season, you have to ask some questions. You have to ask, is the head coach preparing the players to be successful in those situations? And if he is setting them up to be successful and they're failing regardless, why are you continuing to have them with regularity? Are you continuing to do the same thing and expecting a different result? Are you acting in an insane manner? You can't get away from the bag of tricks, because that's what makes Kyle so special. And they need to be the type, they need to be the plays that Kyle's feeling most secure can be executed. Because a good game and a loss will feel a hell of a lot different than an ugly game and a loss. 49er faithful, I think, can handle a loss in a competitive game. If we get blown out and it looks ugly and Trey looks like he's not ready and may not be ready for 3 more years, man, that could be a long 2 weeks for 49ers fans. For the team, you may see unrest in the locker room. You may see the national media start to turn on the 49ers. You're already seeing a little bit. I heard Mina Kimes this morning saying, let's be honest, the San Francisco 49ers are not a Super Bowl team. I thought they were headed into this season, but at this point, I have to agree to some extent that they're not living up to that hype, that some of the key early injuries may have actually hurt them to the fact where they can't actually pull this one out, that they are behind the 8 ball at this point. But it's a long season, and I'm remaining positive, so we're not going down that dark hole. All right, I am so nervous about the game, man. I hope we smack the Donkeys. I agree. I don't know about the Donkeys for the Cardinals, but I mean, I'm with it. The Donkeys, Cardinals, Donkeys. Fair enough. Let's see here. I had to skip the negative. Jimmy Pinor, I love you, man. I know you're in there. And I know that that you're a positive force here, but I can't have the Jimmy slander up on the comments. I got to skip it, and I apologize for that fact, but I had to. Rob, if Joey Sly performs good, is Robbie Gould in Robbie Gould's absence? Do we keep him over Gould? I think at this point, Gould's salary is guaranteed, and so you can't cut him and save anything. But it is an interesting question. Was that a poor decision to sign Robbie Gould at the contract? I think you have to say at this point, given the end result and the way in which Robbie has performed since signing the contract, I think it's fair to say that that was a contract that could have been a mistake. You and Grant give excellent analysis of the 49ers. Glad I found the both of you. 504 dimes. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. All right, let's see this next one about Arizona. Warren says Arizona didn't look good early on against the Jags, and it was because of their running game. I think running the ball on both sides for the 49ers is going to be key in this game. Both being able to contain Chase Edmonds, who is quick and fast and can get out of the backfield and really cause some problems, especially catching those dump-off passes. And then the 49ers being able to run all over a suspect defense for the Cardinals as far as the rush game is concerned. Again, a 5.4-yard average allowed by the Arizona defense, and that was after shutting down Eric Henry to less than 3.5 yards in week 1. So between week 1, where they were giving up 3.5 yards per carry or under that, through to now, 3 games later, now the average is 5.4. That's how atrocious it has been. And if you go back and look closely at the statistics, to opposing quarterbacks, they're giving up something like 10, 11, 12 yards per rush. Now, it's a small sample size when it comes to quarterback runs against Arizona, but they are susceptible. This is potentially the way in which we attack them. Johnny asks, how do I go live? I go through StreamYard. That's the way in which I did it. It's the way I do it. Appreciate StreamYard. A contradictory statement here of Sly isn't very good, less than 80%. I haven't checked his career percentage, but that is concerning if it's below 80%. That'll be interesting to look at. I know he has a small sample size, just came into the league, I believe, in 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. I don't think it'll be a huge drop-off. I do think the 49ers should go for it more frequently without Robbie Gould back there. That for sure should be the case. Question about Jalen Smith. I think that's more of a reflection upon how the 49ers feel about their own linebacker core, which I would agree with them is a talented room for them. All right, 49ers guy says they kept talking about 2019 vibes with this team, Rob. Don't you think it's more like the 2014 vibes locker room, maybe getting divided? Man, I hope not. That was depressing, wasn't it? Going from, I was there for the NFC Championship game where Richard Sherman tipped a pass to that was intended for Crabtree that got intercepted in the end zone. I was getting peanuts pelted at the back of my head, man. I was at the 50-yard line. I scored a killer seat to go up by myself to sit in that stadium. My wife couldn't make the game. Got a last-minute ticket, getting the peanuts at the back of the head from the Seahawks fans. Some of the worst fans in the league, if I do say so myself. Very negative, very confrontational when you're up there in Seattle. And man, I just don't vibe with that. At our stadium, I hope you guys are welcoming to opposing fans, man. It's good nature of just being good to your fellow people, man. That speaks about who you are. And I mean, you want to beat them on the field. That's the way in which you humiliate the opposing fan. I felt bad enough from that game. I didn't need Seahawks fans piling on me there, but man, that got dark quick. It was that negativity headed into 2014, the dysfunction in the front office. You've got to hope that that's not what happens here. I am nervous that it could, because you're talking about potentially things going off the rails here. And a lot of time after this game in particular for things to get weird in the locker room, hoping that they do not, hoping that Shanahan can keep this thing together. Let's see a little comment. What you talking about, Willis? What you talking about, Willis? What you talking about, Willis? The offensive play calling has been below subpar. I think that's a fair assessment, at least subpar, if not below subpar. Feeling like Mike LaFleur was a bigger blow to the play calling and defensive scheming than expected. That's an interesting question to raise. When initially you saw LaFleur head over with Robert Saleh to the Jets, you had to assume that it was Kyle's clear preference to keep Mike McDaniel. And it must have been. You wouldn't think he would let the person walk that he would prefer to stay. You wouldn't think that would be the case. Looking back, you have to wonder if he did want Mike McDaniel, and if he did, was he wrong? I think those are fair questions to ask at this point. I don't think we have the answer. I am still on the Mike McDaniel train. As I said earlier, I actually like him. I think he comes across in a way that some people don't get in the press conferences, but I love the dry sense of humor. I love the dry jokes. I like the self-deprecation. And I think that he's learning his role within the offense. That's where he is. That's what I see. All right, next one up. I want Trey Lance to be good so badly. As do I, Gil. As do I. But it's going to take time. Kid hasn't played many games. That's a fair assessment. It has been a while since he has been on the field consistently. He has been practicing this for a long time. A lot of practice. We're talking about practice? No, we're not talking about a game. We're talking about practice. Not a game. Not a game. We're talking about practice. So that's all he's had. Yes, it will be interesting to see him on the field. That is certainly something we're all looking forward to. Thankfully, within 48 hours, that's exactly what we are going to get, 49ers fans. All right, Fable JVC says, I will be a parasite on your positivity. JVC, why? Why do you got to be the parasite on my positivity? Once your stream ends, my host goes away and I go back to being a pessimistic, argumentative a-hole. Well, I mean, we got to be skeptical, right? And just because you're positive, just because I'm positive, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to question decisions made by the front office. It doesn't mean that I'm going to blindly follow everything that's done by this team. I'm going to disagree with ways in which Kyle interacts with the fan base, ways in which he interacts with the press corps. I'm going to disagree with some of his play calls. I'm going to disagree with some of his time management, but I'm looking bigger picture on this and choosing to stay positive in that I don't see a better path forward. I see this as the best opportunity for the 49ers' success, and I think it's too early to say that Kyle can't turn around his own shortcomings, and then we see the benefit of his offensive play calling truly come into its own when he's not shooting himself in the foot with everything else he's doing as a head coach. Those other areas that he doesn't excel, which may be interpersonal communication, which may be on the field adjustments, which may be pressure situations, which may be acting erratically when having a big lead in key scenarios. These are valid concerns with Kyle. My stance is we're better off attempting to have him grow into his own and take advantage of that amazing play calling ability than we are to start over, start some rebuild, have players leave because they know it's going to be a rough couple of years and go back into mediocrity. Because if I'm being honest, I don't trust Jed to make the right coaching hire the next time. And if you do, more credit to you. That's an area I can't be overly optimistic on because I've been shown one too many times that unless the choice is exceedingly obvious, he's probably not going to go with the correct person in that instance. Next one, SD4.504. Man, can't even read. I need my glasses. That's what I need, my glasses on. I am with the 49ers, win, lose, or draw. Trey Lance is the future. Let's give him a chance. Amen to that. Johnny reminding, smash that like button. I like Johnny's reminder there. Get on it, Johnny. Ride that like button. All right, Dean says the 49ers are 2-2, which is funny because they're 50-50 with what direction they want for this regime as well. Yes, it seems as if the 49ers have not completely committed themselves to one course of action, and that lack of commitment has put them exactly where they are right now, in a conundrum, in a scenario where as 49ers fans, as pundits, as YouTube streamers, we don't know what to say. We're going to expect from Trey Lance. We don't know what is going to happen on the field on Sunday. We don't know if Trey is going to look prepared. We don't know if it's going to be a game plan that truly accentuates his own physical gifts. We may see a game plan that would have been better suited to Jimmy Garoppolo. I hope that's not the case. I don't think that's going to be the case, but we're left wondering is the point. All right. I like this. Avatar Singh saying, we always represent red and gold in Arizona. I want to see some red and gold in the stands. It's hard to pick it out because Arizona's there in red too, but I want to hear you on the television. If you are going to the game in Arizona, be loud. Be loud. Be excited, exude that confidence. Try and get at the 49ers early, engage with them on the field, try and build their confidence because we need them to come out like dogs on Sunday. We need Debo to truck people. We need, I guess it may be Ross Dwelly to catch another touchdown pass in glorious fashion the way that he did on Sunday. Man, it sure feels like we are going to need a lot from this team in order to get the job done. So if you're a fan in the stands, I'm counting on you to help with that. Moving on, do you think Steve Young could come in and tutor Trey Lance? This is an interesting question and not something I had previously considered because, it's not something that to this point we really think of Steve Young as doing. But his comments make you think that he would like to do something like that. And I always wanted to see this mentorship, this tutoring between Jerry Rice and all of the wide receivers that we brought in. When he offered that to AJ Jenkins, the fact that AJ didn't take him up on it was a huge red flag to me. I actually wanted to draft A.J. Brown that year because A.J. Brown said specifically, if I get drafted by San Francisco, I'm running the hill with Jerry Rice, and that fired me the hell up. I was so lit by that comment, I changed all my mock drafts to predict that we would take A.J. Brown. I would love to see a mentorship between Steve and Trey because this entire organization needs to wrap their arms around this young gentleman and ensure his success because his success is our success. Do not get that twisted. The 49ers live and die with how Trey Lance proceeds in this league. And I think that's an undisputed fact going forward. It's really not. It's just my opinion. Fable says if we move on Rodgers after giving up our 2021, 2022 and 2023 first round picks for a guy we aren't going to use, someone needs to get fired. I'm just saying. Fable is very right on that point. That would be a fireable offense for sure. All right, Bill B says, I'm a new 49er fan and an NDSU alum. North Dakota State University represents. Watched every game of Trey's college career, many in person. Trey is an absolute winner. Bill, you're firing me up here. Bill, you have brought some light into this otherwise dark moment that we were having, talking about 2014 vibes, talking about how difficult it's going to be to win on Sunday. No, Bill points out the simple fact that Trey is a baller, that we all should look forward to this winner getting on the field and showing us what he's got when he has a true chance to be successful. Calm under pressure. He's going to be great. Bill, I hope you are right about that. I hope that you are spot on and that Sunday we all see what you already know to be true, my man. Lester here says Trey Lance would tutor Steve Young. He is wicked smart. My boy's wicked smart. Wicked smart. Jimmy is easy to root for. He's not special. Trey Lance may be. Those are all true statements, Paul. Jimmy is easy to root for. He is a team player. He's I believe he's a tough guy. I believe that he is a tough football player. The linebacker background. I know people question the toughness because of the injuries, and I just think that that's unfair to question that from Jimmy without actually having walked a mile in the man's shoes when everyone around him talks about his toughness. Those are the guys that truly know, and those are the guys that truly say. So I agree. Easy to root for him. I wish him the best, even if it's not with the 49ers. No question. Interesting question here around Alex Smith. Was Alex Smith better than Jimmy G? Gabriel, I think so. I think Alex had a rough start to his career where it was unfair to expect him to be successful in the situation he was thrust into. He finally gained the trust of his head coach in Jim Harbaugh, and even that guy betrayed him. It just set up poorly for Alex. Alex had to fight through a lot of different scenarios to find success in this league, and he persevered. Jimmy has had a lot of hurdles of his own to get past, and he's overcome some of them. But a lot of them has smacked him in the face and has been unable to this point, and that's a key differentiator, to this point, unable to overcome it. I don't put it past Jimmy to move on from this scenario, get traded to another team in the NFL and find success. Let's be honest that he is, when healthy, one of the 20 best people on this planet at throwing the football field or throwing the football around the field. That there is another team in this league that would want him as a starting quarterback as long as they don't have to pay him what the 49ers are currently paying him to be an often injured quarterback. Next up, Lance needs to reach out to Tom House, pay him all the money to coach him. I have read some concerning things that are to be expected as far as mechanics regressing when you're under live bullets. That, like I said, to be expected when you have a player that didn't have many college reps coming into the league, very inexperienced. I think that it is to be expected that there will be growing pains there. What you talking about, Willis? All right, prime time. Kyle's a control freak. No way he can control Rodgers. If that was the case, Kyle would have got Brady. Interesting take. Kyle definitely does seem to have a preference for being in control, running the show his way, specifically his way. And you do wonder if a big personality would have rubbed him the wrong way. You could see some conflict between he and Aaron Rodgers coming up. All right, 504 Dime says, do you think Steve Young could come in and tutor? Again, we're talking about that. Yes, absolutely. Think he could. I think it's probably unlikely. Alex was more mobile, had a better arm. Agreed with that. Luke Walsh comes in and says, overall, I'm happy with Shanahan as a coach. I'm not happy with his work as an unofficial GM. Thank you. That is my point about needing someone to come in and stand their ground. And as much as I hate to say it, because I do love Lynch, I think he's a fantastic individual, great human being, amazing football player, Hall of Famer. I'm not entirely convinced that he's the right man for the job as GM. The jury is still out for me. I'm not convicted one way or the other. A little bit of a clown on Kyle for sucking at developing players, Ken points out. Like, what the F happened to Ayuk? He regressed big time. Yes, he did. He ended up in the doghouse. And as I said, I find that entire idea of a doghouse to be frustrating. Jonas says, do we re-sign Raheem Mostert next season? Oh, God, I hope so. Raheem Mostert has the exact vision and speed needed to excel within this offense, but he can't seem to stay on the field. And part of that stems from his upright running style, the speed at which he is running when he's moving with the ball. And that puts him in scenarios where he takes some big hits out in the open field. Seems to get injured doing so. That's a tough one for me. I think that you have to let him test the free agent market. And then if other teams are mediocre on him, if he has a soft market and you can get him back at a reasonable price, yes, I think absolutely you try and bring him in. But you can't go into the season thinking that he is going to be the starter, the unquestioned starter, much like you did with him this season and with Jimmy as well. I think there has to be an acknowledgement that the injury history is what it is. Therefore, you can't spend too much and you can't count on it too much either. Luke says all coaches should have draft and free agency input. Agreed. But does Kyle have too much input in personnel decisions? It seems as if that is the case. We won't know until the behind-the-scenes books are written about this regime years from now. That's when we'll really know who ran the show and what controversial calls happened behind the scenes. But I think it's fair to have these questions at this point. All right, let's see here from Warren says, Ramirez, we might need to, unless Mitchell, this is a response here, not a real question, so we'll let that one go. What is Jimmy G's trade value, 504 asks? I think next to nothing at this point. We need to upgrade our defensive backfield until the rookies come along. Agreed. I will say this, though, that there are fans out there saying the 49ers did nothing to address their problems at cornerback, and that's just not the case. I don't think that's what 504 Dimes is saying here. I think what he's saying is whatever we did was insufficient. I think that's the key. You can't say they didn't invest in it. Their primary acquisition at free agent was the individual who was now hurt. Now, you could fault them for taking Jason Verrett and pegging him as cornerback one, but you can't say they didn't attempt to fill that need. They drafted 2 rookies in the 3rd and the 5th round. Again, reasonably high draft picks, 2 draft picks used. You can't say they did nothing. You can question the moves they made, whether they were the correct move or not, but it's not as if they didn't attempt to address this need. This is an interesting one here, man. N Famous on 3 says, we need a new training staff before we re-sign Mostert. I question the training staff to a degree with the insane number of injuries this past few seasons. I would agree, except that the 49ers already came in and cleaned house with their training staff 3 years ago and saw no added benefit from it. I don't know what the answer here is. I don't believe in curses, but if you're near Levi Stadium, burn some sage for sure, especially if you're near the practice field. You know, it's one of those things, it's a small sample size. Hopefully within the next few years, we go the other way and we have a few healthy years and we see the benefits of that. This one's a little optimistic. Fable saying, I think Ayuk is going to have a big game this week. I hope so, but I'm not confident enough to start him in my fantasy league. I only have him in one league. Thank God I doubled down on Deebo Samuel in almost every league, unless someone jumped the gun and got real excited and took him in like the 7th round. But the value for Deebo was out of this world, so I landed Deebo, and I'm happy that I did. All right, on to what you're talking about, Willis. No on Raheem. I mean, I can't fault fans for being there. You can't count on having significant production. It has to be an and one type of addition. You have to believe in Sermon and Mitchell going forward if you're going to bring Raheem back onto the roster, in my opinion. All right, Johnny says to me, I feel like Jimmy G was a blessing and a curse. Interesting take. He definitely was a blessing in that he pulled this organization out of the pits of despair they were in, and a curse in that we passed on some other very viable options that may have been better for us. He gets the wins. Back to the statement. He gets the wins, but with him being injured so often, he puts Kyle in a difficult situation. I really hope Trey Lance is the guy. I agree with you, Johnny. It does seem as if Jimmy does just enough not to lose the position, but not enough to get us over the top and actually make the difference. And I agree that I really hope Trey is the guy to get that done for us. Quick question about the camera that I use here. Happy to go into any of that. Right now I'm rocking the Sony A7C, as I have some other uses for that camera as well, but a nice DSLR mirrorless camera. Do love that because it gives me the ability to do this. Yeah, autofocus. I love autofocus. I just love autofocus. The fact that it can follow my face, it's amazing. Let's stick with it. All right. Let's get rid of Kyle on the next one. I'm not even putting that up there because I'm not there yet. I'm not there. Agree with this one, Fable. Giving him a 1-year deal or longer if it doesn't cost that much. Jeff Garcia for quarterback coach, Paul M. throws out there. That'd be interesting. You hear him a lot. He certainly has some robust opinions on what the 49ers should be doing. I don't know what type of qualifications he has coming into it, but if you don't see progression from Trey Lance at some point this season, I think Rich Scangrello could be on thin ice. That's for sure. You need someone who's going to develop this rookie. And if you don't see it this year, that's a bad harbinger of things to come. All right. Yes, Warren calling it out. Feeling the love in here in the chat he's talking about. I usually avoid the live chats due to the toxicity. But you see, I'm putting out that positive energy. I'm throwing out there that the San Francisco 49ers have every opportunity to come out and prove to us that they still belong in the conversation for the Super Bowl at the end of this year, at a bare minimum in the conversation for a playoff caliber team. And all they need to do is come out and not commit those terrible, atrocious penalties, turnovers, and mistakes that could and have cost us the game the last 2 weeks. Here we go. More optimism. People believing we have a puncher's chance to win against the Cardinals. All right, here we go. This is an interesting one. And famous on 3, Sean Payton would be the only one I would be willing to take over for Kyle, to be honest. Possibly Andy Reid. Other than that, I'm not big on any of the other current coaches. I would agree wholeheartedly on those 2 coaches that you threw out there as potential replacements. If I thought either one could come in, that would soften the blow of losing Kyle. But again, I'm not there yet. I'm not calling for Kyle's head, not anywhere remotely close to it just yet. But I do think it's something to monitor going forward. Here we go. Fable saying Grant speculates a ton. That's true. Grant does a great job of starting interesting conversations. And I think some people don't understand that's what he's doing and then get angry about ideas that get thrown out there, when really they're just ideas. They're just fodder for us to then converse about. And I appreciate that, because as a 49ers fan, there's nothing that I like more than talking about the San Francisco 49ers, which is probably evidenced by the fact that I'm staring into a camera talking to myself right now. No, I'm talking to all of you that are gladly here in this chat, participating with me, asking and answering questions. I love it. On to the next one. What's up? I agree. This channel feed is enjoyable. Thank you. Thank you. If you like this channel, subscribe to this channel. That's a fact. Michael Gallego says, Gallego, close. I probably butchered that. I could have just stuck with Michael. I could have. And then I decided to get bold and it shot me in the foot. Hopefully Kyle doesn't make that mistake this weekend. It might be in Kyle's contract that he controls draft picks. Michael, thank you for putting that out there. I thought that was the case. When, all those terms get put out there initially when you sign the head coach. I could swear that I read articles from Matt Mayoko and Matt Barrows that called out that when it came down to head-to-head, people, disagreeing on who the draft pick would be, that Kyle would have the deciding vote there. And I found it to be very surprising when John Lynch came out and indicated that it wasn't the case, that he, in fact, controls the draft room and the buck stops there with him. It was a bold move to assert himself in that way, and I hope it doesn't end up coming back and biting him in the tuchus at the end of this season, because it could be that this draft doesn't look so pretty at the end of this year. I hope that's not the case. I hope that all the rookies come in and contribute, but if they don't, you got to think he'll have to answer for it, and he put that X on his chest when he declared that he was in charge of the draft in taking Trey Lance. Avatar saying, this is the NFL and anything is possible. There's a reason that any given Sunday is a saying. I agree with Avatar wholeheartedly on that. It's not that we don't have a good team any given Sunday. He used it too, any given Sunday. I'm with you. I am with you. He talks hipster style. I don't know if that's me or if that's somebody else, but I'll take hipster. If you're my age and you get called a hipster, that's a compliment. That is a compliment, people. On to the next. I don't think Kyle controls defensive picks. I just don't see that possibility. Oh, possibly offensive picks. That seems a little bit more likely that if he has limited control, that it would be over the offensive players, in particular, the offensive skill players. All right, let's go. Portland, a retirement community for young people. Yes, Luke. Yes, it is. People come to Portland and retire. That's it. And work in a coffee shop. That's the way in which it goes in Portland, Oregon. Keep it weird, Portland. Brian agrees that Kyle needs help. I think that you can't have yes men on your staff if you are an egotistical individual, even if that ego is warranted, as it is with Kyle. I say you got to bring in some people with strength, the ability to stand up to them. And I'm not putting it past any of the people that are already in the room, simply adapting to that skill set and asserting themselves. Mike McDaniel, if you feel Kyle's off on something, tell him no. Tell him he can't have it. Tell him it is your way this time around because his way isn't working. We need somebody there to be the voice of reason in the room. All right, going down, trying to catch us up in the comments so that what you're talking about is what I'm talking about. Here we go. I think this criticism of Kyle, we'll see. We know Kyle was working on plays for Lance on the way back from Max Pro Day. Well, that's not negative, and that is what was out there, and hopefully we see a bunch of those out there on the field. All right, back to Fable says, I'd keep the guy who knows the playbook mid-season than to bring in a guy who would need to learn it. That's where we are right now. We have a player who knows the playbook but isn't healthy enough to play. And he was a player that coming into the season, it was fair to expect would be injured at some point. As much as I hate to say that, and I don't think I'm being pessimistic in saying that coming in, that's the way in which Jimmy's career to this point has been. I was hoping that wouldn't be the case. I still have the possibility of being right. I predicted Jimmy would miss one game and play 16. There's every possibility that that's what plays out. I actually hope that's not the case anymore. I hope that Trey comes in And what we see from him is so special that we have to go forward with it. But to this point, you're looking at someone who hasn't had the practice reps, someone who didn't have enough reps in college and then didn't get the practice reps needed to get himself to the next level, was playing against lesser competition in a lesser division in college. It is challenging to stay optimistic on this route, but I try, people. I try. That's a fact. All right, trying to get caught up in the comments again. Ooh, I mean, I'll throw that up there because Cap Speaking is all on top of it. Rob, you the man. No, Cap, you the man. You the man, Cap. Shoot the man. Shoot a man. I'm loving the love. I'm loving the love all the way around. See that positivity? It's contagious, people. And that's what we need. We need the Niners to be positive. We need the Niners to be feeling that love. 2019 vibes was them going to freaking softball games together to root on the equipment people. I read so many fantastic stories about positivity and that 2019 team. And maybe it was the low expectations coming into it where we didn't know how special it was going to be. But damn it if it didn't turn out to be one of the most magical seasons I can remember. Sadly, ending in heartbreak there in Miami. But it is what it is. That's going to make the next victory all that much sweeter. Leaving says, would like to see the vote on Banks. Would like to see the vote on Banks. I'm assuming you mean you just want to see Aaron Banks out there. And I'm with you that feels like a miss to this point. I thought that was going to be an easy double, right? You take interior linemen early on in the draft, they're pretty consistently good enough, at least good enough to play. And the fact that he's not is concerning to me. Again, points back to potentially John Lynch and a hot seat at the end of the year if we're not successful. 4-9 Bloodline says, at the end of the day, start Jimmy G so he can get exposed without a top 3 rushing attack and top 2 defense. He is below average. I don't understand how people can constantly defend his play. I don't think you have to defend his play in order to appreciate what Jimmy brings to the field. That's, I think, where we differ here, 4-9 Bloodline. I respect your opinion on Jimmy's deficiencies. I think those are on plain display. However, he also does bring good qualities to the field, and those are also on full display most Sundays he's out there. Are they outweighed by the bonehead play, by the errant interception that he throws? That's open to interpretation. Over the last 2 years, it's trending toward no. It's not balancing out. You're not getting more good Jimmy than bad Jimmy. And that lack of progress is also concerning. So the mistakes that are a consistent part of who Jimmy is and the game that Jimmy brings to the field are a concern. And the lack of progress in those areas is the bigger concern. I believe that those will be the reasons that the 49ers finally are able to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo is just the inconsistency. Just the inconsistency. Bryant Culp says, I've been subscribed for a long time. Bryant, I appreciate you, my friend. I appreciate all those subscribers that have been with me back since there were just a few comedic videos on my channel. Not always able to be on the chat, but you're here now, and that's what matters. Cans points out that hipster is never a compliment. I would agree in that I have never said those words. I've never said that word to someone in a positive way. I've never said to someone, hey, you're very hipster-like, and meant that as a compliment. So probably not. If it was aimed at me, it probably was a shot. But I'll take it. It'll bounce right off of me. I don't even mind. Here we go. Directed at me. Luke says, Rob, any consideration to Steve Young's pre-draft speculation? The 49ers traded to 3, hoping Zach Wilson would be there, but then the Jets changed their mind. There's a lot of pre-draft speculation that is sort of all over the map there, and I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy. I'll get that out there from the outset. I think it's possible. They had to at least be open to the possibility that that would happen. They had to like Zach enough to think that the Jets could have had the same opinion of Trey Lance. The Jets could have come in and said, no, we fell in love with Trey Lance. We're taking him at number 2. We don't care about benching him for a year, or we don't care about sucking while he plays through his growing pains. So the 49ers had to be comfortable with Zach Wilson. I don't know that I buy into any of the further reaches without evidence. If I see evidence of it, I'll be a little more into the theory. But to this point, long answer, no, I don't. I think that I find it hard to believe that Kyle would draft somebody he didn't want. Kyle is egotistical enough, has enough control within the organization, even if the contracts say that it comes down to John Lynch. When those two are in a room together, when you're talking about the starting quarterback for the 49ers on Kyle Shanahan's offense, I just struggle to see him saying yes to somebody he was not completely sold on. And so until I see evidence of it being contradictory to that logical point that is a sticking point for me, I've got to stay with he was on board with Trey from the outset. This is an interesting question that Cap brings up. Can Kyle go back to Jimmy if Trey balls out? He can. That's a possibility. He could. Should he? Would he? Would the locker room respect that? He could lose the locker room if he did that. Let's just look at the number of one-year deals that are on this team. The number of players who came back for another shot at this thing. Like all right, we'll see if we can catch 2019 vibes, and then I'll hit free agency again next year, because I think this team has a chance to compete. To this point, I think it's fair to say that Jimmy has not wowed us. I don't think it's his fault, the games that we lost, not specifically. The injury, you could say you could have predicted, and therefore we should have insulated ourselves better by preparing Trey Lance. But if you then go to Trey and he does what Jimmy has not done to this point and balls out, not only would the fan base start to lose it if you go back to Jimmy, I think there are some players within the 49ers locker room that would also begin to lose it if the 49ers went away from Trey after balling out. That would be an atrocious move. And why would you do it? Why not just ride the storyline of, well, we'll give a couple extra weeks so that Jimmy can get truly healthy and see if Trey can continue the trend? Because it could be a flash in the pan. This is going to be something that the NFL hasn't seen. Trey Lance in full action. Nobody's going to be prepared for it. So you have an opportunity to catch Arizona off guard. The same won't be true the next game, and it'll be even less true the game after that. So Kyle could ride the idea of, well, this injury for Jimmy is lingering longer than we expected it to. Even though he had a chance to play against Arizona, he tried to get healthy through the bye week, and it just didn't respond to the treatment as we hoped that it would. So we're going to give Trey one more game. And then the sample size becomes 2 games. If Trey balls out in 2 games, forget about it. It's over. It's over. All right, next one on the great QBs called plenty of audibles at the line. Jimmy doesn't. I don't know, Michael. I see him get us set up pretty well at the line of scrimmage. I have not heard from Kyle that that's an area of weakness. In fact, it would seem that what the 49ers offensive players say about Jimmy would indicate that he sets them up for success at the line better than Trey at this point. So I think even if it's not an area of strength for Jimmy, it's an area of weakness for any rookie, in particular a rookie that didn't get very many practice reps. That's rough. Fable talking about, for the record on what Rob is talking about, my comment was directed to the idea of removing Jimmy for Cam Newton right now in the season. Going back to that one, clarification. Clarification is key. All right, on to the next one. Johnny says, I agree that the more experienced and knowledgeable player needs to play, but he has removed himself. That's true. I think that the player who puts you in the better chance to succeed needs to play. If you play the player who does not give you the better chance to succeed, that is where you start to lose the locker room, in my mind. When players think that you as a front office or as a head coach are hamstringing them from victories, that's where you start to see people get a little nervous, and the arguments within the locker room can start up there. Could be rough, especially on a bye week where there's nothing else to talk about. Lee says Trey will have to ball out on his own. Has the team put him in a position to succeed? It doesn't seem that way. It seems as if Trey will need to rely upon his physical gifts. The question becomes, can Kyle and Mike McDaniel draw up a game plan on 1 week's notice that puts Trey in the best position to utilize those physical gifts? That I think they can. Given what they were able to do in 2019 when they lost basically the entire left side of their offensive line and the creative game plans that were a result of those injuries, I have confidence that they can. Will they? That's another story because it seems to conflict with Kyle's conservative game planning for Trey up to this point. One of those things will change on Sunday, and I'm hopeful that it is the conservative nature. What are we so tight for? We're 2-2. Let loose. Let the rookie play. Let the rookie excel at what he does best. Put him in a position to be successful and then take the damn training wheels off. That's what I say. First comment that I called out here that I noticed, Notorious Gav is in the building. What's up, Gavin? Good to see you, my friend. If I missed an earlier comment, I apologize for that because I would have seen Notorious Gav right out front and called that thing out. Aaron Banks surely can't be worse than Daniel Brunskill. It's hard to imagine that he would be. The interior line protection has been atrocious for the 49ers. Alex Mack has not looked good. He has looked like a 36-year-old center. He has looked like a player on the decline. He has looked like someone who in one-on-one pass blocking matchups is getting dominated, even when the nose tackle or tackle lined over center is not the most dominant individual on the field, let alone when he's going against some of these elite nose tackles that we have faced and will continue to face in this struggle. It's difficult to think that it could get much worse, and at some point you have to see what the rookie can do. You wonder if he'll get some reps during the bye week, and if at some point in the season we don't start to see him ease into game action or just a switch at some point. Even if we are in the running, you would hope that we can work him in at some point. It's frustrating to see a high-round interior lineman not play this year. That's the most painful draft pick so far in my mind. Antonio calls out that if the 49ers win Sunday and Shanahan goes back to Jimmy G, that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting is an understatement there, my friend. Antonio, I am with you 1,000%. The fan base will be up in arms. If you thought that it was contentious between the Jimmy and Trey fans, and I put myself squarely in the middle where I root for both of them, and I hope that either one starting has success, but those that have polarized themselves will grow louder and louder and louder as this bye week runs on. So hopefully, regardless of what happens, Shanahan won't announce anything. He'll do the gamesmanship. We won't know who's going to start in week 7 until we get closer to that game because he will keep it close to the vest. My hope is that the play on the field makes it obvious to us as fans and pundits what the course of action should be going forward. Next question, comment here. Gabriel says, if any team keeps referencing performance from 2 years ago, then that team will never be able to replicate it. Completely different team. That's a fair statement. The 49ers should not be attempting to recreate 2019 vibes because 2019, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, is over. Over. On to the next. Fable, play the rookies this year and let experiences teach them so that hopefully next year they are all far more advanced than they are right now. I'm not quite there yet, but it's not far off. A loss Sunday to Arizona, and the 49ers do need to reevaluate. Are we playing for our jobs as a front office? Do Kyle and John feel the pressure such that they need to win the maximum number of games this year? Or do they just admit to themselves that this season we are unlikely to make a push, we are unlikely to be terribly successful, and therefore we need to do everything within our power to build for next year because we are still on Trey's rookie contract. You do have to be able to take advantage of that inexpensive quarterback contract to build a roster around him and make a legitimate push within the first 4 years. And if you don't get any of those reps for the rookie, it becomes his second year as his first year. And then we're waiting until year 3 of his contract for him to really show what he's got, because he's got all the growing pains next year. No, if we see 1 or 2 more losses, I am going to shift in what the 49ers priorities should be. And I think most fans will as well. Going on to Gabriel's comment here, the part of this game is everyone doesn't understand how good the Cards' offensive line is, and they will bully the Niners. They do, in fact, have a stud at center that the 49ers could have made a run at, right? Hudson, to this point, has been phenomenal. You could say Mac hasn't been. Another fair criticism for the front office, and something to question as to whether the defense will be able to get after Kyler Murray. My contention is that, again, the way in which the 49ers win this game is mistake-free complementary football. I don't think it's all on the defense. If it is all on the defense, the Niners have already lost this game. If the responsibility of winning this game falls on the D, it's over in my book. I just don't think that we can stop this high-powered Cardinals offense completely. I think you can slow them down. And the way in which you do that is a balanced attack on the other side of the ball. So to me, that's the critical element to this and the real question for Sunday. Gavin is back in, and he's talking to Jed York. Dear Jed York, how many games do you plan to walk out on this year? Oh, that's painful. Now, Gavin is probably referencing back to my own impersonation of Jed York. And if you haven't seen it, it's hilarious in my own book. You go back and watch Jed York's masterclass on building a wildly successful stadium in the NFL, where I go into my impersonation of Jed York. I got to be in character in order to do it, so I'm not going to go live here in Jed York fashion. But I will say that this thing's setting up to be ugly. I hope it's not. I hope that the 49ers right the ship. I hope that they make the right moves going forward. I hope that they understand the importance of where we are as an organization, the development of Trey Lance, and how that takes precedence over everything else this season, that the future 5 to 10 years is more important than 2021, as painful as that is to say. But if it starts to get ugly, we know Jed can be a little irrational. I hope that he has grown. And credit to Jed that what we have seen of him so far over the past 3 or 4 years under this regime is an improvement on what we saw. But that's because what we saw when it was Balky and Harbaugh was a goddamn tire fire, right? It was just hard to behold. As a 49ers fan, I didn't like to actually witness that level of dysfunction. When you have to laugh at your own team because the dysfunction is so painful, that's not a good place to be. And I don't wish that on this 49ers team now. I don't think that's where we're trending. But there are some concerning signs that you got to keep your eye on, because things could get ugly quick. Another comment here from Gabriel talking about the 49ers have beaten the Cardinals in Glendale the last 2 years in a row. It's always a dogfight, regardless of the record. That's a fact, and these division games are close. Notoriously a bit lower scoring than you might expect them to be, and real close. Any team you play twice a year, there's history there, man. They understand each other. They know what the other team is looking to do. They understand these concepts the other team is running in a way that you can't prepare for in a 1 week preparation for teams you don't face on a regular basis. I suspect that this will be a close game. If it breaks out, I have a hard time believing the Niners will run away with it. If this is a runaway game, I hate to say it, but I think the only way that happens is if Arizona runs away with this, and that's painful to think about. So I'm choosing to say that that's not what is going to happen. Instead, the 49ers will control the ball. They will have success running. They will take advantage of a Cardinals defense that is allowing 5.4 yards per carry. This could be another scenario where you don't have to throw the ball more than 12 times in a game. That could be how we attempt to beat them. That would be phenomenal. Here's a call out of Jimmy. Dude is 5-5 in his last 10 starts without that rushing attack and defense. What exactly does he show on the field? A quick release? Wow, stop the presses. There's something to be said for what Jimmy brings to the field when you listen to other players talk about it. I can't quantify what it is, though. And that then raises the issue of, well, then why are you so attached to him? And And to be quite honest with you, I'm not anymore. I have reached my breaking point. And it happened during the last game to where I still hope for Jimmy's sake he is able to put it all together on the field. I still hope for Jimmy's sake that he has significant success within the NFL. I just don't think that's going to be for the 49ers. And quite honestly, I don't know that I want it to be, because I don't know that I can put up with that continual heartbreak for much longer. I need somebody to come in that gives me even greater optimism. And as of right now, my man is Trey Lance, because as of right now, I can be wildly optimistic, and there's nothing to prove me wrong as of yet. But Sunday is approaching very quickly. Hey, this is a great call out. The records don't matter this early in the season. This was something I almost looked up, and given the time that we have next week during the bye week, perhaps that's what I'll do. But look back on last season or the year before that or any year in the NFL at week 4, and then flash forward to the end of the year and tell me if it's the same teams that were undefeated or doing extremely well or struggling within the first 4 weeks that have the same end result at the end of the year. It's oftentimes not the case. Things change drastically in the NFL. 16 weeks was a long time. 17 games is even longer. 17 games, there's 13 games left for the 49ers. A lot can change. A lot can change. Luke brings up, I only asked because the reasons Kyle and John said they traded up to 3 don't make complete sense and have changed several times. That's true. There has been a bit of an adjustment in their story around how they moved up to 3, why they moved up to 3. What is apparent to me, and I don't say this with certainty, but enough certainty on my own part to have this opinion, is that I don't think they were locked in on who they were going to take at 3. But I only think that because you can't be locked in on who you're going to take, because you cannot say with complete certainty who the Jags or the Jets were going to take at 1 and 2. At 1, you can say with 99.99999% certainty that it was going to be Trevor Lawrence. But it's the Jaguars, man. They could do whatever, right? They've made some head-scratching moves before. This wouldn't be the first time. But that one seemed like a lock. At 2, you really didn't know what direction they were going to go. Again, seemed probable, seemed that you could count on that information, but you've witnessed extreme shockers happening in the NFL draft before, and you can't be ill-prepared sitting at 3, not knowing whether you want the player who got passed up on. So you had to have at least 3 players you were okay drafting. So for me, that's where the unsureness of who they were taking at 3 comes into play. On to the next one here with Bryant going, Rob, assuming Jimmy G is in a 49ers next year, who would you like to see as a veteran backup quarterback for Trey? That's a really interesting question. It's hard to say because you don't know who's available. But ideally, what you're looking for is someone like Teddy Bridgewater when he went into New Orleans. You're looking for someone who has upside, is a consistent producer. You don't necessarily need a flash in the pan for a backup quarterback. You want consistency. You want someone who can win you 1 or 2 games if they need to that season, but you're not counting on a backup quarterback to come in and save the season, unless you're the 49ers right now against the Arizona Cardinals, because we are counting on a backup quarterback to come in and save our entire season this Sunday in less than 48 hours. It pains me to say that, but it's true. So I would go after someone like that is looking to come into an offensive system like Kyle Shanahan's, because experience within Shanahan's system would set him up for success to then go on to Green Bay or LA, any of the teams out there running similar schemes. So I would look for someone that is much more consistent. And we don't know who's available next season, so it's tough to answer beyond that. But those are the traits I'd be looking for. I'm not looking to spend a lot of money on a backup quarterback. I think if you are on to your backup quarterback, that season is most likely going to be in the drink, right? It's very rare that backup comes in and pulls a Nick Foles. But that was an instance where you had a consistent, talented individual that was relegated to the backup spot that then came in and shone. And I think that's what you hope for. That's exactly what you're crossing your fingers and praying for when you sign that backup. This seems true to this point. Gabriel calls out, when you have two QBs, you have none. That's a fact. The 49ers have been riding this two-quarterback system, and not in a good way. Not in the way that we hoped to see when we saw it against the Raiders when they were platooning the quarterbacks in and out. Man, wouldn't that have been fun if they had actually pulled that off. But instead, we saw it in very limited fashion. Trey got very few reps, and now Trey is going to get all the reps because we're sort of in that panic move. And it feels like we didn't do enough to secure ourselves from the inevitable panic that was going to happen. Flashing forward a few for this next comment here. Bryant calls out, Rob, Kyle wanted Watson, Stafford, and asked on pre-draft night about trading for Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I do not contend with any of those. It is clear as day that Kyle wanted to move on from Jimmy wholeheartedly. And I do not believe that it was just an injury fear. I do not believe that it was just, well, Jimmy's great, but he gets injured. No, Jimmy has limitations. Kyle was sick of those limitations. Jimmy gets injured. Kyle was really sick of Jimmy getting injured. In particular, last year, where it seemed as if towards the end of the year, maybe he could have fought through it. I'm not putting that on Jimmy or questioning his toughness, but it seemed as if Kyle was questioning his toughness at some point. So yes, I agree. The writing was on the wall. At some point, we are definitely moving on. Why not now? It feels like this could be an ideal jumping off point. I got to ask, why not now? Here's a comment on the two quarterback system, whether you can have zero quarterbacks with two quarterbacks. It's very true. There can only be one, truly one. If you have two quarterbacks, you got none. And hopefully this week of practice for Trey is just what he needs. Just what he needs. The reps he needs to get the confidence, the play calls he needs to be put in a position for success. Oh, fingers crossed, 49ers fans. Fingers crossed. I like this. I like this comment here by Bryant, thinking that Kyle and John agreed together on Trey Lance. I'm totally on board with that. I could see a scenario where they sat down, logically went through the decision-making process, and landed on Lance as the appropriate pick. I think that that is absolutely possible. AJB already raises the question that I'm not prepared for. If we do miss the playoffs and Lynch is fired, who replaces him? I'd have to look at the available candidates. I can't think of anyone off the bat who's a stellar candidate. Most stellar candidates have jobs. But my stance would be you need someone who comes in with equal footing to Kyle. He would need to be a recognized name. He would need to be a respected name. And Jed would need to make it clear that this individual was coming in to be the GM, not to be Kyle's GM. The GM for the San Francisco 49ers, making calls when tough calls need to be made, stepping above Kyle when needed, not at all times, working together. I don't want to see another scenario where we have beef between our head coach and our GM. I would much rather have this scenario where it seems that maybe they're a bit too agreeable and not coming to the right conclusions because they're not standing up against one another potentially. But I would much rather have that scenario than one in which we have the infighting and the leaks and the Balky BS that happened then. God, that was painful. God, that was painful. Oof. All right, going forward in the comments, we're wrapping this thing up here in the next few minutes. So if you got anything you want out there, throw it out for sure. I'm going to try to get a few more, and then I'm going to roll out on the who's in, who's out segment that I prepared for this, talking about the importance of the players who are in and out for the 49ers and the Cardinals. We'll get to a couple more comments here and then go right into that to close out. Luke, we're going to go here to your comment. The first week after the draft, the reasons for moving up changed many times. That's true. It might mean nothing. That's also true. Trey may have been the target number one from the get-go, but their story did change. Luke is spitting facts there. I think that there's nothing out there that leads us to a concrete conclusion of what happened. So speculation is rampant, and it is warranted. When you do not have the facts of the situation, you have to speculate. And the fact that the information has changed leads to some wonky conclusions. That is for sure. I agree with this, though. We can speculate all day. The facts are that Kyle has only admitted to targeting Trey Lance. That's why I stick on the idea that he was in it. That and the fact that I don't think Kyle concedes to anyone. I don't think he concedes to anyone. Fable says there can be only one. The Highlander reference. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Let's see if there's anything that we want to make sure. A couple more, and then we're going in. Chester says, we was installing a Trey package and trying to install Jimmy offense, therefore not fully prepared to do either. Hopefully we can shift to one plan and get on one page. Chester, I agree with you there. The sentiment being that you cannot develop two different offenses. We chose to develop the one for the player that we knew at some point would be out, that we were well aware could actually play himself out of a job. And now one of those two scenarios has played out, and we didn't do what was needed in order to get the next guy ready. Hopefully, this week was enough. Hopefully, Trey's physical gifts are enough to carry him this week. Hopefully, the game plan is simple enough for him to succeed. Hopefully, Kyle and Mike put him in the best chance for success. Easy reads, cutting the field in half, getting him out of the pocket, allowing him to use his legs and get that run game going. A lot of comments on who they wanted at the number one pick, but my stance on it doesn't change. We're going to head into who's in, who's out with this last comment by Johnny here. Thank you for the live feed and open dialogue with the fans. I'm his new favorite channel. I love that, Johnny. I love that. And I welcome everyone who was in this chat. Love the engagement. Love the back and forth. It's absolutely fantastic. I was like, dude, I'm going to get on here and like maybe I won't know, what to talk about and I'll run out of things to say and then it'll be dead air. And dead air is the worst thing that can happen. Dead air is so awkward. But the reality is I can spit it like the best of them. I can just keep talking. Sometimes it's nonsensical, but I will keep it positive and I will keep it out there. I'm not even going to touch the Gruden thing because that is weird, but agreed that it is suspect. All right, getting into who's in, who's out, who's likely to play. Thank God Trent Williams is in. Thank God for that. Let me put up the banner so that everybody knows what we're talking about here. All right. Trent Williams is in. That is a miracle, man. It looked miserable. I thought we were going to lose him for some considerable amount of time. I thought that it was going to be potentially a season-ending injury. I mean, it looked bad. And the fact that he was carted off the field for the cramps, I was already on edge because of that, and then carted off in holding it and the sad look. But the way in which he describes it makes perfect sense now. That guy's a total warrior. I can't believe he's going to be out there. Freaking phenomenal. Such a big uplift for the 49ers to get Trent Williams out there. That really, really helps the run game. I can't imagine what it would have been like with Moore going against that Arizona pass rush and Chandler coming off the edge. That could have been ugly. Thankfully, it looks like we're going to have Williams out there. Also looks like Elijah Mitchell, who progressed from the blue no contact jersey up to practicing without it, and then was off the injury report, right? We cut the two players from the practice squad, Chris Thompson and Kerryon Johnson. As soon as those moves took place, that was when I was like, it looks like Elijah is playing this week, and we need that to pair with Trey Sermon's thunder to be his lightning. We now have a 1-2 punch, ladies and gentlemen, and it could be pretty on Sunday. We may see 3 rookies lighten it up for the 49ers. It could be 3 rookies running all over the field. That would be spectacular. Josh Norman looks like he's going to be playing. Progressed from the point of spitting up blood last Friday to this Friday. He's still in the blue no contact jersey, but according to Kyle, I believe he will be playing on Sunday. Lord knows that we need as many healthy cornerbacks as we can get against a team that has 6 players with 15 receptions or more. 4 of those players with 200 yards receiving or more. This is a very balanced attack that Arizona is putting out against the San Francisco 49ers. And they also have the one all-star that you can't shut down, similar to Devontae Adams. They have DeAndre Hopkins. So even if you can contain the balanced attack without depth at corner, you're going to get shredded in that one-on-one matchup. That's why I say it's all on the D-line this week. Got to be able to get after Kyler. Got to be able to get him to the ground. got to be successful and unified in the pass rush. That's why leaning towards playing, it's important that Kinlaw and Ebukam both look like they're going to play, as does DJ Jones. Kinlaw practiced in a limited faction. That could just be what we see from him going forward. The knee issue, at least the remainder of this year, feels like it's going to be a continual basis, week in, week out, monitoring the situation, trying to rest him during the week, and then bringing him in for game action. That's concerning. Ebukam seemed to be a hamstring issue. Hopefully that's one-off thing, because he came in being a real sort of picture of health as a defensive end, and you thought that was a good signing by the 49ers, such that they weren't bringing in another player with an injury history. Unfortunately, he's going to miss a couple of games, but that's well within the norm for NFL players. And DJ Jones, critical player in stopping the run and making the Cardinals one-sided on offense. That's critical. Out. I called it last night when I wrote up my notes for this segment. I called out Jimmy being out. I didn't think there was any chance. I thought it was insane that we were talking about a less than 100% Jimmy playing in this game. We saw what a less than 100% Jimmy looks like. We saw Jimmy struggle through a lower leg injury and the inability to plant off of that foot. Man, you got to hope that they wait until he's fully healthy to come back, or that Trey lights it up and you never have to count on that. That would be the ideal scenario. And then K'Wan Williams out as well. The good news on the Cardinals side is that Byron Murphy is most likely out, and two other key players in Chase Edmonds and their rookie cornerback Wilson are going to be game time decisions. That wraps up the ins and outs. That's pretty much it for everything I have to say about the 49ers' chances to win on Sunday. As I predicted on Grant's channel, if you missed it, I think the 49ers take this game. I think the 49ers take advantage of the Arizona Cardinals and their 5.4 rushing yards allowed per rush to run the ball all over them. I've got the 49ers winning this one 27-24. And I hope you guys enjoy it with me. I will be on at some point this weekend. Look on Twitter. Follow me at The Left Shoe. The Left Shoe. SCHUH. I'll announce the next live as it's coming out. Believe me, if we win this game, which I believe we will, I'm going to do a live immediately following that and go crazy at some point. Anyway, 49ers fans, I appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed this show as much as I enjoyed doing it, as much as I enjoyed being here. AJB, great show, Rob. We need a Jed's kit. That's coming. I will keep the comedy there. I will keep the representation of our sponsors. We've got the proud sponsorship from Folgers Instant Coffee that is yet to make its way back onto the airwaves. Oh, it'll be there. You trust it will be there, people. Until then, until next time, I appreciate all of you being on here. I hope you all help me and Luke in speaking this win into existence. No, it was Paul speaking this win into existence. But Luke was right too. Smash that like button. I mean, you got to do it. Speak the win into existence. And we will be back next week at 3-2. Let's go, Niners. Ooh, there we are. There it is. Have a good weekend.